Hey, what's up guys? I'm KBHD here, and I get asked almost all the time, like clockwork, what tablet I use the most. What tablet I use the most. And to be honest, I don't really use tablets all that often, but when I do, it's the Nexus 10. And this is the Nexus 10 Revisited. It's been almost 5 months since the Nexus 10 was released, and from my experience, the hardware has pretty much disappeared and left only the software for me to focus on. And this is a good thing. This is definitely a very good thing. The hardware itself, just the screen, the build quality, the materials, and the design, they just kind of disappear into your hands and you're just left interacting with and touching pure Android. I have a link right below the like button on this video to my full Nexus 10 review, in which I rant and rave about a lot of things, but first and foremost, the display and how awesome it is. Good news, it's still awesome. Everything from the graphics and the websites and games and text and apps and the Play Store, everything is all still super crisp, super sharp, and that's exactly what you'd expect out of a 2560 by 1600 display. That gives you 300 ppi on a tablet. That is by far the highest DPI on any tablet out there. Viewing angles and brightness are pretty solid. You know, they're probably among the top for tablets again. Another thing that's become subtly awesome though is the thinness. This is a pretty powerful tablet, yet it manages to be one of the thinnest and slimmest out there, yet it still houses a 9,000 milliamp hour battery that lasts for days on standby and can give you 4 to 5 hours of screen on time before needing to recharge. So that's enough to watch a movie on a plane, easily. But there's something else that Samsung was brilliant with when they made this guy, and that's the speakers, the front-facing speakers. These are huge. I don't think I could go back to rear-firing speakers on a tablet again. Front-facing just makes sense for every use of a tablet. I wouldn't be surprised to see more phones to take on this style now that the HTC One has proved that it makes sense for smartphones too. And yes, the speakers are pretty loud and clear without any sort of distortion, which is pretty important again for me if I'm watching a movie or listening to music or just watching a YouTube video or something like that. Another thing about the design though is the material on the back. It is way more important than you originally think. A lot of people don't talk about this, but part of the reason the iPad or the iPad mini can feel so awkward to hold, or you might slip while holding it, is that there are just smooth metal plates on the back. The Nexus 10 back is my favorite material on the back of any mobile device. It's polycarbonate. It's a rigid plastic, hardened plastic that has a sort of a soft touch feel that's just a little bit grippy / tacky on the back. So you can easily hold the weight of the Nexus 10 in one hand and it still feels natural. I think Google learned a lot from the success of the Nexus 7 and how nice it is to hold that they decided to use this sort of back. And the back welds on really nice and curves around to the front and just blends in with the design well. There's no other real way to put it. It just blends in and works with the Nexus 10's design. Also, speaking of design, the hardware itself has held up pretty well to regular constant use, and one of the unique points is actually these pogo pins at the bottom. I actually switched to the pogo pin charger instead of micro USB and actually found that it charges quite a bit faster, so I do recommend picking up one of these on eBay or something if you can get a Nexus 10. Definitely check this out, it's quite a bit faster. One last thing about the hardware, Google has been slacking on Nexus accessories, especially that mysterious smart cover-like accessory. Some of you may or may not know the Nexus 10 has a removable back, or at least up at the top. You can take the back off. And there's supposed to be an accessory that clips into the Nexus 10's back and folds over, and it has a nice soft microfiber on the inside and multiple color options. Basically a smart cover-like accessory for the Nexus 10. The Nexus 10 even has magnets inside that sleep and wake the display. It is just begging for an accessory like this as a companion. But as of right now, in March, 5 months after release, it's still MIA. Come on, Google. Either way, we've already seen Android 4.2.2 Jelly Bean in action, and there still might not be all that many optimized apps in the world for this device, but I'll go ahead and show you how I use Android on the Nexus 10 as a daily driver for my own personal life. Alright, so even though the Nexus 10 isn't really a consumer-oriented device, I happen to use it personally as my media-consuming device. Pretty much bring it everywhere to consume media, which for me consists of videos and news. So you can tell basically by my setup here, and I'll go through my home screens of the Nexus 10, that it is a pretty simple setup here. Like we said, there's not a whole lot of tablet apps going on here, so I'll go ahead and start from the middle. In the center here, I have the Google Keep widget and the Google Drive widget, and that's it. And then I have a calendar widget on the left, Falcon Pro, which is my Twitter app, Reddit News, and Eye in the Sky. Eye in the Sky is a pretty sweet weather app, by the way. It's definitely a good looking one. And then over on the far left is just an open, empty screen, and I'll go ahead and throw that wallpaper link down in the description below the like button for those of you who want to pick that up. Then one to the right, we have the Google Play widgets here, just for recommended apps and recommended on Play. And then furthest to the right, I have some sound identifiers. But that's basically it. Now, I have a Google Now search widget up top because that's basically locked there, but I always use Google Now by swiping up from the home screen. I found that that's my favorite way to access Google Now on any Nexus device, or any device, however, for that matter, with software keys. So I always swipe up from the bottom to get to Google Now, and I use Google Now all the time. I have a separate video on how I use Google Now, so if you want to watch that, that's where I have all that information there. And then most importantly, down in the bottom in the dock here are my most frequently used apps. So I have Google Now, which again, I use quite a bit, but if I don't want to swipe up from the bottom, I'll just tap that. I have Google Plus, which I use all the time, Google Calendar, Feedly, that used to be Google Reader, but now I use Feedly to keep up with the news, and I found that it's a surprisingly good alternative / replacement for Google Reader, so that's what I use to catch up on articles and stuff throughout the day. Then on the right side, I have Google Tasks, I have YouTube here, and the YouTube app on tablets is pretty good. I use that pretty much every day. There's also Pocket, which is basically read it later. I throw things in here that I don't really have time for necessarily immediately. And then Dolphin Browser. That also used to be a Google product, Google Chrome, but I found Dolphin Browser performs better on the Nexus 10. So there you go, guys. Those are my reasons, at least, for choosing the Nexus 10 over a lot of other tablets that I could be using to do the same thing the Nexus 10 does. A lot of people like to ask the question also, Nexus 10 or iPad 4 or Transformer Pad. A lot of them are really high-end tablets with high resolutions that are pretty similar, and I picked the Nexus 10 because number one, I like the back material better. Like I said, that polycarbonate is pretty awesome. Number two, it's 16:9, which kind of rolls the iPad out immediately, but it still keeps the Transformer Pad in, and then it is the highest resolution tablet on the market today, and since I'm a Pixel person, that's really what got me. So I really think it's a great bang for the buck. A lot of people will go with the Nexus 7 because it's also a great bang for the buck, and it's a great 7-inch form factor, but Nexus 10 does it for me. So leave your thoughts below. What do you guys think about the Nexus 7? You can see me down in the comments below replying right below the like button on this video, but definitely give your thoughts and opinions, and we can talk about it. Either way, thanks for watching, and I'll talk to you guys in the very next video. Peace.